Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We have a Kenya Kwanza statement on the current situation in the country, a statement by Kenya Kwanza Alliance on the matter of artificial fuel shortage and the high cost of living crisis. The nation of Kenya is groaning. We are in collective anguish and economic crisis. The devastating effects of this current economic crisis is now manifest in the artificial fuel shortage and skyrocketing prices of basic food items. Millions of Kenyans are witnessing in bewildered agony as fuel pumps run dry and queues grow longer due to this artificial shortage, which has already disrupted the entire transport sector. Kenyans are now forced to dig deeper into their pockets for bus fare, and border operators are being driven out of business. The skyrocketing prices of food items has pushed the cost of living beyond the reach of millions of Kenyans. Many farmers have failed to plant because the price of fertilizer has moved from 3,000 last year to a high of 7,000 per 50 kilogram bag, a price that is well beyond the reach of most farmers during this planting season. It thus therefore means that this year's harvest will be dismal, further compounding the problem of food security in our country. Cooking gas that was retailing as 2,300 in February, just 2 months ago, is now sold at Kenya shillings 3,350. The price of 10 liters of cooking oil, which was retailing at 1,450, now is selling at 3,100. And as already stated, fuel shot up from Kenya shillings 135 per liter of petrol to between 150 shillings and 205 in some parts of our country. Hospitals that rely on fuel to maintain life support equipment are equally in a crisis. The government of Kenya knows that millions of households cannot cope with these prices. The largest casualties, naturally, of this crisis is the vulnerable in our society. In the midst of the people's loud cries of agony, the silence of concerned government ministries is deafening, and their inaction is snowballing into a national catastrophe. Kenyans are calling on the National Treasury and the Ministries of Energy, Petroleum, and Agriculture to address, among other issues, the following. Noting that there exists a consumer protection mechanism to cushion Kenyans from adverse fluctuation in fuel prices, this mechanism is financed by the taxpayer at the pump through the Fuel Levy Fund. We ask, where is the 39 billion shillings Petroleum Development Levy Fund meant for the fuel subsidy program as this crisis deepens? The Auditor General has already raised questions on the irregular and illegal diversion of these consumer protection funds to state agencies and unnamed private entities. She has also decried abuse on the petroleum import system in favor of some preferred and politically connected oil marketers deliberately depriving Kenyans of the subsidy mechanism. Can the Treasury also confirm or deny that the diversion of funds has been used in debt servicing and infrastructure development without the approval of the National Assembly? Can the Ministry of Energy and Petroleum list the import quotas that have been allocated to oil marketers the petroleum products, that is Tax and Levies Amendment Bill of 2021, whose passage has been frustrated in Parliament, should be processed, and all the roadblocks and back and forth between the different departments of government be removed so that this bill can be passed of national emergency. For the record, this bill seeks to reduce the huge levies on petroleum products. That is the reason why our prices in Kenya are beyond the international prices, including prices in our neighboring countries. Why, we dare ask, has a budget in the last 3 years, including in last week's supplementary estimates, where our Kenya Kwanza MPs tried to provide for allocation for the subsidy program on fertilizer, but it was frustrated. Only for the Ministry of Agriculture to engage in the current PR stunts late in the day to pretend to provide subsidized fertilizer. We understand that the ministry is all over the place trying to launch some subsidized fertilizer program. This is not only ridiculous, but absurd. How do you, for example, make a farmer who requires 1,000 bags of fertilizer to queue for 5-6 hours, only for him to be or her to be told that you can only get 10 bags in a very widely publicized launch? I mean, if you're going to give 10 bags of fertilizer, please avoid the unnecessary launch. The high fuel prices are unprecedented and are not due to ordinary market responses to global crude oil price dynamics. Our problem is cruder and more local. This is the result of collusion between monopolistic cartels and economic saboteurs on one hand, and oblivious, reckless, insensitive, and incompetent public officials on the other. Insatiable greed and corruption is driving us over the cliff. The current state of affairs is a clear manifestation of the vestiges of the conflict of interest and state capture that is now pervasive in all sectors of our economy. Kenyans, in their entirety, want an end to the issue of conflict of interest and state capture. The casual and insensitive attitude to the plight of tens of millions of struggling Kenyans is a disturbing development that has emboldened cartels, which have taken over critical economic sectors and are now moving in top gear to capture the state. That is why the benefits, powers, advantages, privileges, and other interests of these barons and cartels take priority over the plight of 50 million Kenyans. This is also why, in the midst of this distressing crisis, the loudest messages from public officials, including ministers, are centered around BBI reggae and Azimio jingle bells and whistles. These turn deafness, greed, and callous indifference must stop. We therefore call on the National Treasury to account for all diversions of funds out of Petroleum Development Fund and to restore the fuel subsidy mechanism without delay. The Treasury must rise to its constitutional accountability and live up to the Public Finance Management Act. Failure to do the right thing will convert the National Treasury into a cog in state capture and corruption that will destroy our country. We demand that public officials responsible listen to the agonized cries of millions of suffering Kenyans and abandon their exclusive and destructive subservience to cartels and barons of state capture and do something about the rapidly deepening economic crisis. This is a statement by Kenya Kwanza. I will take one or two questions just to clarify the statement that we have made.